Metall Humor.守れ愛する人たくましい自分になれるさ壊せ弱気な君を崩せぶつかる壁を熱いこと武器になるから Believe in your heart
Now I welcome you again to my personal judgment about the second figure of the series Choshinka Tamashii series Gabumon Metal Garurumon, respectively Digivolving Spirit series Gabumon Metal Garurumon. Since Choshinka Tamashii series is the original Japanese name, I will use it here more often than ours. And again, while judging this figure, I also will going back to official statements and my personal prejudiced assumptions and statements that I made about in my update videos, which I made to every new announcement of the Choshinka Tamashii series promotion page. Bandai Tamashii Nations and the creators say themselves officially that with this figure series they strive to be the ultimate transformable Digimon figure series for adult collectors. Because of this official statement, I will also be very strict in my judgment here again, and I will build up this whole thing similar like I've done it with Agumon or Greymon's judgment. So let's start. The second figure of the Choshinka Tamashii series, Gabumon Metal Garurumon, was released on the 20th January 2018 in Japan. Since I had discovered the Nippon Yasan shop only a short time ago before, I had also pre-ordered the figure in this German shop. However, the release date would have been much later by us, and since I was so hyped, I also cancelled this pre-order and in the German shop and ordered this figure right at Nippon Yasan, as they sold him at a cheaper price as logical in our shops. Also this time I got him home after a short wait. And now finally it was the time again. I held the long awaited second figure of this new series in my hands, and all my thoughts that I had and have from then on until now about it, I will now include in this judgment. First a bit about Gabumon's form. You can notice that by most of those figures they sacrificed the look of the pre-evolution form for the better look of the higher evolution form, which in my opinion was a very good decision. Though Gabumon's form looks very decent, and I think it could not have been done better here again in my opinion. I have the old Warp Digivolving Gabumon Metal Garurumon figure, so here I can show comparisons down to the smallest details in form of images between new and old. And you also will see the transformation demonstration of the old one as a compare to the new one at some time in this video. The new figure in Gabumon's form measures about 5 inches. Personally, I think that the overall image of the Gabumon form got very successful again, and here is a much bigger improvement compared to the old, clearly noticeable. And what is striking in a direct comparison is that the new figure in this form is slightly larger than the old figure. This is probably also due to the generally larger and better proportioned parts. Maybe it is the same case with the two Agumon figures in compare. You can see on the new barely larger slits and gaps on the entire body, and therefore the design is cleaner and more closed and flush, where Agumon's form of alter ego has significantly more such slots, gaps and holes than the old Gabumon form. With the Metal Garurumon kibble on Gabumon's form, it is naturally and similar to the old figure. However, I've mentioned at some point ahead that a more accurate looking Metal Garurumon also means more accurate looking Metal Garurumon kibble, and also additional Metal Garurumon kibble on Gabumon's form, and that's exactly the case here, and that is just logical. Nevertheless, it got again improved, just as well as good as it was possible with the transformation system. So in terms of the correct colors of the various body parts of Gabumon, everything has been improved on the new one, and has been implemented very accurately. A few examples between old and new. On the old one, the shin lower jaw section was made entirely of Metal Garumon's rear part, therefore it was blue in Gabumon's form, and so it was incorrectly colored for Gabumon's form, because it should be yellow. This is similar on the new one, but he has accurate extra parts on those head parts, so Gabumon's form is accurately yellow on the shin lower jaw section. But the front part of the body of Metal Garurumon is also quite wider and bigger than the rear part, bigger than it should be, and it is bigger than the rear body part because it has to hide more parts within his chest, torso section, and actually the entire head of Gabumon's form. This is again to be seen as a compromise to be able to make it look as accurate as possible in both forms. And on the old it was similar with the more massive front body part and the slightly smaller rear body part. Excuse me please. So there should be no point deduction for this. The next thing I never understood about the old figure is why they gave Gabumon's from this dark pink foot claws. It makes no sense at all for Gabumon's form, and if they had been white like on the new one, it would have looked better and would have been definitely also more fitting for Metal Garumon's missiles in this triple missile launcher device than the dark pink color claws they used for the missiles. At the time, probably maybe this was a complete design failure, because it would not have been bothered at all for both evolution forms to color the claws white, as you can see on the new one. It may of course be related to the fact that Bandai had previously planned it differently for Gabumon's original character design in the anime, and it was later changed, so perhaps the claws were painted because of this change with the wrong color. Is a guess. By the movie Transformers, in some cases it is more common that the colors of the original character design in the movie do not match or are sometimes completely different from the colors of the produced toy of this character, since the movie character designer team decided in the end to give this character another design or even a completely different coloring. But at this late date, the order to the manufacturer for the production of the toy of this character of course gone out a long time ago, and so got produced with the first character design, and therefore the first chosen color is not changeable for the toy anymore. So, as short explanation, is a Transformers toy figure red but originally blue in the movie because it was first only blend red in the movie, but they decided to go for blue for the character in the movie later. So that's just an example, as I said, but you could explain the wrong colored claws on the old Gabumon form this way, and again, that's just a guess. The rest of Metal Garumon's kibble is more visible on Gabumon than it is in Agumon's case, and as mentioned, it is similar to the old one here on the new Gabumon. The rear legs of Metal Garurumon becoming Gabumon's arms, and Metal Garurumon's front legs becoming, as well as possible, Gabumon's legs and feet, with of course even more accurate looking. Metal Garurumon front leg kibble on them. Excuse me please. The rear legs of Metal Garurumon becoming Gabumon's arms, and Metal Garurumon's front legs becoming, as well as possible, Gabumon's legs and feet, with of course even more accurate looking Metal Garurumon front leg kibble on them, which also adds to Metal Garurumon's accurate looks and one solid stability that has really been a big problem with the old one. Kenji Watanabe highlighted this in his illustration on the box cover and adapted it more to the design of the figure. That's why the Metal Garurumon kibble is omnipresent on its, and it's pretty much the same way as on the old figure. But to make Gabumon's arms a little more accurately noticeable is perhaps the best that a given Gabumon actually hands now. Of course, this is greatly enhancing the look in Gabumon's form and completing the form of Gabumon as well. That's really a big plus point compared to the old one, who had absolutely no hands, not even hinted in any way. This was also officially highlighted in the promotion text, which I also found to be very positive, that he got hands now. What does seems odd is when you put him on his feet, the actual Gabumon foot part or foot sole kinda floats with the claw slightly in the air through the extra metal blade on Gabumon's soles for Metal Garurumon's form. But this helps also to be able to display his rocket launcher a little better and more accurately, because like you seen, Gabumon's feet turned around, becoming Metal Garurumon's missile launcher. The big metal blade is great for Metal Garurumon, but looks a bit strange for Gabumon's form. It's just a compromise again, but they could have made this metal blade a little thinner and more decent for Gabumon's feet, but well, it's still passable. But how I said, it looks a bit strange when Gabumon standing on his feet. Incidentally, it was the same with the old one, but the metal blade wasn't not made of real die-cast, but somehow, as you can see, it was not quite as striking on the old one how it got designed on the new. Apart from the Metal Garurumon kibble, the overall image of the Gabumon form looks clean and closed. The basic body shape and the individual body parts were implemented very well by better proportions and sharper molded forms, and got, in comparison to the old one, absolutely to 100% improved. Just have a look at how sharp and long the horn is molded, how accurately sized the ears and tail to the old one and Gabumon's. Excuse me. Again a failure. Yeah. Just have a look at how sharp and long the horn is molded, how accurately sized the ears and tail are compared to the body, and how accurately the head shape and lower legs are shaped compared to the old one in Gabumon's form. And as I mentioned in the update video, how beautiful those fur tips are around the horn have been detailed molded, so they are seeming more distanced and natural looking, like fur. Absolutely no comparison to the old one, which seems somehow very mechanical, cold and unnatural through several aspects. On the new Gabumon you can clearly see that it is his put on fur coat, and he looks through the super molding and adjusted and accurately chosen colors more natural and lively and not as mechanically cold as the old one does. This counts for every single part of the body on the new one, so he is really nothing to sneeze at through this super paint job. The eyes as well as the patterns on his stomach and fur coat got beautifully with the matching colors detailed, accurately painted. Because of all these facts, I personally think that the new figure in Gabumon's form has only positive aspects compared to the old Gabumon. The only thing that bothers me a little is the chosen slightly too red color for the retina of the eyes, which despite of this have been painted very nicely in detail, are not too colored as Agumon's eyes, but still very nicely detailed. but they are a bit too red like it was on the old one, and in my opinion they should be more brown red. Otherwise there's nothing to complain about the color design. The arms and legs of Gabumon are, as you can see, also very well articulated and maintain the set position by a very good strength of the various joints very well. The head is not movable due to the transforming ability, only the ears has been molded on ball pack so that the ears are very poseable, so you can angle the ears however you wish. But the ears easily coming off out of the sockets if you pose them too much, and it is mainly only intended for the transformation. But if you need it, it works and is also nice for posing. He has ball pack joints for the shoulders, so that movements in almost all directions are possible. The movements to this inside and outside are of course somewhat limited until parts getting in the way. The fists are even on a ball pack hinge joint, but the movements are limited by the nature of the mold, but still a bit movable. They should also remain mainly in the Fuel Code arms. The legs are also on such a ball pack joint, thereby they are also almost in all directions movable until body parts getting in the way again. The knees have a hinge joint that allows you to move the lower part of the legs forwards and backwards, which are at the same time also the transformation joints to bring up the rocket launchers for Metal Garurumon's form. And the feet are probably also connected to the shins with such a ball pack. I'm actually very sure that those are even a double ball packs, which making rotations to the left and right, and some very slight tilting movements are possible with the feet. But the range of motion is in general logically rather limited. The tail is also not articulated due to the ability to transform. Let's get down to the transformation. According to instructions, Gabumon transforms into his impressive mega form Metal Garurumon in roughly 16 transformation steps. Since everything is very quiet and snug and tight connected, you should do it with some care, especially for the first times, to avoid to break off any packs or cause other damages to the parts. However, this is not so important here because he has not such pins and slots on the parts such as Agumon has, which have to line up right to snap into place. So I would say that Gabumon Metal Garurumon is easier to transform than Agumon Wargreymon. Unfortunately, I did manage to damage the tail blade on my copy, probably because I did not done the transformation according to the instruction one time. So I did not do it in the right order and the tail blade got damaged. As you may have seen, it got these ugly stress marks and stuff. Since you have to extend or respectively push in the rear body part for the transformation and also have to turn it. And since I probably had the tail blade in the folded in position while I extended or pushed and turned the rear body part, so I damaged the tail blade due it has been pushed over some parts in the interior or scratched over something there. It is advisable to fold out the tail blade before the transformation of Gabumon to Metal Garurumon, before extending and turning the rear body part, and for the back transformation you should let the tail blade folded out until the rear body part section is turned and pushed in completely again. So in short, let always the tail blade folded out before and while you extend, turn or push the rear body part. The transformation from Gabumon to Metal Garurumon is in the base transformation almost identical to the transformation system of the old figure, as I already suspected this based on the official product images and like I mentioned in my update video. Here are just a few extra and additional added parts that make it a bit different, and it so takes extra steps, and I would say here that there are many similarities to the old one, and do not claim that the new figure in this regard makes a lot of things completely different. And you could rather claim here that the new is a remake of the old figure with modified better proportions. But they have improved it extremely and to 300% in comparison to the old one. And to be able to implement Gabumon to Metal Garurumon is logically not otherwise possible, as to take the almost identical transformation system from the old for the new one, and is also not this bad, and actually only shows how well thought out the old figure was even already then. You should also pay attention here, as I said in the last video, that there are not so many other possibilities to design and implement the transformation of these Digimon monsters in a different way. The Digimon have to do a complete body size and color change, which is more difficult to implement, as for example is it with the movie Transformers figures, which in quote marks only have to transform from vehicles into robots. When you are done with the Warp Digivolution, you get a stunning and dangerous looking Metal Garurumon with the officially promised sharp-edged, well-proportioned, molded body and armor parts, which despite being the transformable figure are very detailed and impressive, and more reminiscent of the Figuarts Metal Garurumon figures molds. And all parts have been painted with the right matching colors and color tones. The paint apps themselves are absolutely super detailed, and as it should be, and as we got promised on the official promotion page. But first things first. Metal Garurumon measures about 7.5 inches in length and has a shoulder height of about 4.5 inches. The transformation is definitely a lot of fun, even if the transformation joints are a bit tight and stiff, what I personally do not think is really bad and rather positive, because it also contributes to a very solid strength of the joints in general, because some transformation joints are at the same time the different joints of the two Evo forms. And compared to the old Metal Garurumon, who is incredibly shaky on his feet, the tightness of the joints of the new one is very positive. My old Metal Garurumon cannot even stand anymore by himself through the extreme looseness of his joints without the support of a stand base, without collapsing in itself. Like you can see, even tough he has 4 legs which should withstand it. However, I also did not snap in the hind leg section, probably as it is intended for those pictures, due noticing it too late. Yeah, the looseness of the joints was already a big problem with the old Digivolving figures, so I think the super tight joints of the new ones are so great. Even if it makes the transformation for some of you very difficult, please think about it from this point of view. Definitely a very good improvement for the new figures. Personally, I think the overall image of the Metal Garurumon form got very successful. I really like how the figure turned out, like it is with Agumon Wargreymon. Here I can even still see a clearly greater improvement in proportions compared to the old Metal Garurumon, cause some parts of the old in comparison to the new now seem somehow strange and odd looking. In addition, in direct comparison, it is again striking that the new figure in this form is also a bit bigger and more bulkier than the old figure. And I would not even say that it is only due to the generally bigger and better proportioned parts here. The new one really seems to be a little bigger than the old one. In comparison, the two Wargreymon looking rather the same size in this image, and the old one even beefier due to the coarser mold of all his parts. As I already said in the update video, the proportions and design of the new Metal Garurumon are hardly remembering on the old, and more on the design, proportions and mold of the D-Arts Metal Garurumon. Tamashii described the improvement itself as a true super evolution in the parts compared to the old in both forms, and that the design of the transformable one not getting defeated by the non-transformable Figuarts Metal Garurumon figure. And I have already agreed to these statements in my update video, and I still seeing it that way. I mean, just look at sharp-edged molded. The head shape is, it looks just like the head of the Figuarts figure Metal Garurumon, and then take a look at the head of the old figure. For the new head, they just took the mold from the D-Arts Metal Garurumon and upscaled it in size for the head of the transformable one, which looks simply stunning. And under that aspect, this is where the new figure really shines. Those absolutely awesome sharp-edged proportions and accurately sized parts complete the overall image, and that too in terms of the added parts for Metal Garurumon's form, where Tamashii just did a great job. So in comparison with the old, a big difference. The new Gabumon Metal Garurumon also shines in terms of possible made skin color change, but it is actually less impressive here than it is in contrary with Agumon Wargreymon, because it actually applies more to the Gabumon form, where on the old simply parts were missing, and for the reason that the old figure, apart from these incorrectly colored plastic parts, the skin color change already mastered pretty well. And they had to do was just to add a few more parts to improve the skin color change in connection with the better shaped and proportioned parts. And they have done this very well in any case here. As I said in my update video, that what really impresses, excuse me please. As I said in my update video, what really impresses the most about the new Metal Garurumon is that in this form, apart from the logical two-colored and detailed molded front legs and Gabumon fists in his rear legs, he has no other noteworthy noticeable Gabumon kibble compared to Wargreymon's huge backpack. If the fists in the hind legs bother you too much, like they bother me, then you can easily pull them off, and so you only have those decent hinge ball packs there, which you can either hinge up again or even, and as you can see, hinge down to hide those joints under the hind paws. The then still remaining Gabumon kibble is used here completely, perfectly for the effect, for the representation of Metal Garurumon's parts, which is also similar to the old one. Of course, the better implementation ability due to the nature in general and the additional better shaped added parts play also a major role, that the new one can look so awesome. First, there are the wings, which are of course getting formed out of the splitted Gabumon tail halves like it was on the old Gabumon. But on the new they added additional parts for Metal Garurumon, which are really great. Due to this, it making the wings actually looking more like wings. We have the yellow wing bases, which are not so good for Gabumon's tail, but a better, those are for Metal Garurumon's accurate look, so again, this is a compromise. The wings were covered with other filled out plastic parts, have accurate molded details to make them even better recognizable as the wings, and therefore they are not hollow inside as it was with the old one's wings, where they are simply just the hollow splitted tail halves of Gabumon. Simply super implemented and designed on the new here, isn't it? In addition, they added important extra fold-out able wing details to the outer wing sections, which, as you can see, making look the tail halves of Gabumon's form even more wing-like for Metal Garurumon's form, which was only hinted on the old one. Then they even added those molded details on the rear outer sections with this molded translucent yellow plastic to even imitate the jet stream the accurate way. These clear parts for the jet stream have also been officially mentioned and highlighted in the texts. On the old one they tried this in a similar way, but due to the then limited technical possibilities it just did not look quite this good, and on the old one it is more like those yellow clear parts folding out of the outer tail tips of Gabumon's form. On the new one here, this looks really accurate, and they actually managed very well to make look the splitted tail halves of Gabumon more like wings for Metal Garurumon's form than only splitted tail halves, which reveals the absolute improvement here. And that is just absolutely positive and great. Another positive aspect is that apart from the fold-out able wing sections, these other added parts do not cause any other Metal Garurumon kibble on Gabumon's form. Well, it does make Gabumon's tail a little wider and in the middle, but that could again be seen as a decent compromise. And yes, you see it in the middle, but I think those added parts got very well integrated into the tail design. The coloring and molding of the parts between the wings and on the front back section is very accurate and was wrong colored on the old, namely more blue instead of having the pure imitation there. This is molded on the new as it should be, is drawn more forwards, and the front section is yellow, so it goes over seamlessly into the color from the lower part, which was everything blue on the old and so even wrong colored for Gabumon's upper back. For this fact you could mention the improved color change on the new one here once again. The Metal Garurumon even has this kind of right colored and molded hump between the wings as it should be, which is completely missing in comparison on the old one, and which is there rather wrongly even a dimple. Well, because of this kind of hump, Metal Garurumon has accurately, it is at the same, excuse me please, well, because of this kind of hump, Metal Garurumon has accurately, it is at the same time wrong colored for Gabumon's form again, but this detail you can hardly see anyway because it mainly got hidden by the tail base, so I would call this a compromise again. I already mentioned that the head or helmet is absolutely accurately shaped and painted, but this also applies to the neck, which shape and mold also reminds more of the neck mold of the Figuarts Metal Garurumon. But let's have a look at the old one. This is here very plump and short on the old, and this seems mainly because of the fact that the rear head armor plates from the top of the head are molded onto the neck, and therefore it is one molded piece and is is sadly yellow and not blue as it should be. Although it still imitates a bit the look, but because of the wrong color, just in turn again not as good, and so the neck seems because of this fact also so plump and short. On the new one, the neck parts are exactly individually segmented, molded as on the figure arts and how it should be. Very awesome, I think. For the more accurate portrayal of Metal Garurumon's rocket launcher, the nicely made extra metal blades, which, as I previously mentioned, are a bit weird looking for Gabumon's feet, are very conducive. The black metal section, which is a kind of bendy joint by the original character design, which looks kinda like on such a bendy bus, also has been taken into account on the new figure, and now the section connects nicely and accurate molded the rear and the front body parts, which also contributes to the more accurate look for Metal Garurumon. This bendy joint looking section can be pushed in the rear part of Metal Garurumon for Gabumon's form, and so you can make it disappear completely from Gabumon's form. On the old, it was only plump molded and slightly hinted in the lower area and colored incorrectly yellow, which gives the new an additional plus point. Also, the transformation joints for the hind legs are nicely slim and decent and molded out of blue plastic, which striking out very much more on the old one by the coarser striking shape and because it is molded out of yellow plastic. Due to those parts should hiding the side gaps on the neck section of Gabumon's form, so at least the sides of the neck of the old one are yellow. On the new, however, these parts for Gabumon are of course not yellow as they should be, but by the more decent shape and size, they are getting almost covered by the shoulders, so it is hardly noticeable that they have the wrong color for Gabumon's form. I think so this compromise is better than if they had been yellow as it was the case with the old Metal Garurumon form, because though those parts would have been very striking for Metal Garurumon's form on his rear body section, because they are very visible there, and by a look at the old one you can imagine this very good. With all these mentioned features, the new figure collects an immense number of plus points. The most positive for the stability of the new are the stable, accurate and better shaped and colored legs. Its proportions to the immense body have now been adapted much more accurate sized than it is in contrary on the old. Last but not least, this contributes also to the better, more accurate shaping and more massive size of the various components and molded details of the legs and paws. The improved stability that was urgently needed was also officially highlighted by Tamashii and it's true if you compare it to the look and extreme looseness of the old one's legs. I mentioned earlier, since the upper part of the front legs was connected to the lower part of the leg only with these extremely loose hose pipes, and there is no other direct connection between the upper and lower part of the front legs. The system is also similar on the new one, but here everything is more massive molded and sized and much more stable, only alone through the more massive mold of the parts. Again, the upper and lower parts of the leg are not really connected, but you cannot see that from the sides because of the accurate round details on the legs, which makes it appear that the legs are connected here. In fact, here they are connected only with the hose pipes too. At the lower end of those hose pipes there is a molded on ball which sits again in this cutted open half ball socket. At the same time, this component forms the central leg joint, and this half ball has small molded on pegs on the left and right, which in turn engage in small recesses left and right in the insides of the round leg details. And so the stability is ensured, as well as an almost connection between the upper and lower front leg parts. I hope you can see this here. On the new, as you can see, the hoses have the accurate shape, size and color in contrary to the old one. That's why the mold of the legs reminds more of the legs of the Dior's figure. On the old, however, is nothing between the upper and lower leg parts but air, because there are those round details missing for covering up these sections. Anyway, the whole mold of the front legs looks a bit strange on the old one, and you do not get an accurate straight leg position with the system. Turning the upper section of the leg straighter to get an accurate leg position will automatically cause the missile launchers to be turned backwards, though they are too far backwards with this weird leg pose positioned. Due to the odd design, you just cannot get them higher, though they could not position right over the shoulder armor sections how it should be. This issue has also been superbly resolved on the new one, so the missile launchers can now be accurately positioned over the shoulders. Even tough, the front legs have just to the half the molded details for Metal Garumon's form, and the rear sections half mimic the features for Gabumon's form. It still looks great! In comparison to the old, where actually the Fury molded details of Gabumon's coat outweighs and represents less well the armored sections of the leg for Metal Garumon's form. So the new one can only score here with positive qualities. This also applies to the paws and the complete hind legs, which are also very reminiscent of the mold of these parts of the Dior's Metal Garurumon, and less to those of the old Digivolving one. The paws have also an adapted accurate size for the legs and the massive body. The front paws have also these round armored details molded on the sides. Even the turbines in the soles of the feet of the front feet were taken into account and got accurately detailed, molded and colored. For the hind paws, they could not take them into account because there are the cutouts for Gabumon's fists. And the whole accurate design and mold of the hind legs and paws are more reminiscent of those of the Dior's than to those of the old Digivolving one. Again, the new figure is fully convincing, and they have improved the design and the transformation as much as it was possible. For sure, you can overlook that the red armor detail on the front of the fire armor is missing, and that there is the slot for the transformation joint, which was not otherwise possible, and why the red details could not be considered. Well, they could have made the red details as separate interchangeable option parts to hide the slots for an even more accurate, more complete look for Metal Garurumon, but for that they did not done that. There should not be a point deduction, but would have been an additional positive upgrade compared to the old one, just as well an accurately molded cover part for the hind legs to make them look more accurate and to hide Gabumon form's fists underneath. And from the point of view that those new figures striving to be the ultimate transforming Digimon figures according to their own statements, you can argue about those missing parts again too. And at this point I have to say that because of their official statement, I will see that increasingly critical and strict, and if they have brought the figure to perfection or not. because when I see the movie Transformers from Hasbro Takara, and in comparison what third-party companies then do with the original figures for the critical fans and improve them, or do upgrade kits for the original figures, or even produce a completely own better figure, then I would really question the original from Hasbro Takara and why they could not do it this perfectly too. And at this point you can see that there is still always something you can improve and bring it to the real perfection, and Hasbro Takara could do it that way also, but they didn't done it to save costs. Again, on the subject of perfection and what would have been possible or not, and whatever the actually end product here by the Digivolting Spirits figures also corresponds to the official statements and does justice to them, so that remains an open question to argue about for me. The only thing I have to criticize, really something from a critical collector's point of view here, is that they have molded this tail blade from translucent yellow plastic again, as they did it on the old one. Of course, it looks much better and sharper shaped molded and the old ones and the new ones is pretty pointy, but the point is why they chose translucent plastic for the tail blade again. On the original character design of Metal Garurumon, this tail blade is not a laser blade, but rather a real sword-like blade that does not shine or glows, etc. So why make the new ones look more like a glowing laser blade again? Well, I think they wanted to remind of the design of the old one, and it was more intention than a design flaw, probably again for nostalgic reasons, since we know this with the Brock Raymon's Brave Shield. That's how I would interpret this fact now. But since the new figures should be perfect for critical collectors, I just have to argue about that, because it just doesn't match the accurate original character design, but well. Anyways, the question remains why they even had wrongly molded this tail blade out of translucent plastic on the old one already back then. Either they found the design kinda cool, or was Metal Garurumon's original character design originally planned with a glowing laser tail blade? This design decision was changed to a normal blade design in the last moment, but for the toy it was not to change anymore. Speculations over speculations. Maybe we will learn it someday. So, let us get into the diecast parts on the new Metal Garurumon. Since the official text about the diecast parts were a little misleading for me, and so also did not make it clear, somehow it sounded in the text as if the hoses on the front legs are made out of diecast. But I suspected in my update video, however, the opposite, and that they would be made out of plastic. And shame on me! The hoses are actually really made out of metal, so yes, the hoses are really die-cast, including the molded on ball. Then of course we have the complete dark blue helmet, where die-cast fits perfectly well for it. By the way, the ears are not made out of die-cast but normal plastic, but this isn't noticeable at all, what is really great. And of course, as described, the extra blade on the rocket launcher or on Gabumon Source, of course, is die-cast. It could even be that the ball joints to which the front legs are attached are also made of die-cast. It looks visually this way, but you can see it not really well, and it could be otherwise too and molded out of plastic. The painting of the entire figure in all details and in connection with the ability to transform is really impressive and absolutely cool detailed and nothing to sneeze at. Especially those various paint apps on the head are in no way inferior to the paint apps of the head of the figure arts, and is very identical to this, so they choose colors and color tones perfectly. The eyes are also just perfect and accurately implemented. They are also more monochrome like those of Gabumon's form, and in my opinion are also a bit too red like those of Gabumon's form, and should also be more brown red or something like they colored them on the Figuarts one. But the problem with the two red eyes already had the old one in both forms too. I really loving the metallic dark blue color of his armor parts. However, it should be rather a more purple color tone as it is in the anime, as they used on the SH Figuarts Metal Garurumon Original Designers Edition, and it should not be so dark blue. But to be fair enough, Bandai has always painted the armor dark blue on all their Metal Garurumon figures before. Even the newer Precious GM Metal Garurumon got a dark blue coloring style from Mega House. And so it was actually only one time accurately painted purple to the anime colors on this Original Designers Edition Figuarts Metal Garurumon figure. So there should not be a point deduction for the new Digivolving one here now for this. Yes, and the different colors and color tones chosen for the coloring of the individual details are generally absolutely matching and very accurate and much better than on the old one. I also like on the second Choshinga Tamashii figure all the chosen colors to 100%. On Metal Garurumon is like on Wargreymon the interplay of shiny, metallic and matte colors recognizable, which rounds off the design really nicely. And of course, the more metallic golden yellow armor parts cannot be like this either, otherwise Gabumon's form would have a metallic golden skin color instead of the accurately yellow. Again, this is logical, right? And in general, the quality of the paint job in terms of cleanness is also as good as that on the Figuarts figures and Wargreymon. In contrast, I chose the toilet with the super great SH Figuarts Original Designers Edition Metal Garurumon figure because I got an absolutely badly painted copy, which is almost unreasonable and also very borderlining, like you hopefully can see here too. So something like this is what I would call a very bad and sloppy paint quality. And I'm really annoyed that I did not complain about this at my eBay seller back then. How this figure with this absolutely clearly visible bad and sloppy paint job made it through the quality control at Bandai still is and remains a mystery to me. It must have been a blind person who just let him pass through. But back to the topic. Now a few more precise words about the articulation. The head is for a transformable figure and compared to the old one incredibly impressive articulated in connection with the neck joints and the other individual head joints. The neck and the head joints have a structure similar to that of the Tamashii D-Arts Metal Garurumon, although in a slightly simpler style, but still breathtaking for transformable figure, so that movements in all directions are possible. With the entire neck joint, up and down movements are possible, since the neck consists of a total of 3 separately movable parts and makes it alone through this very poseable. The individual separate parts of the neck are not only rotatable, but can also be swiveled slightly to the sides and in all directions. Briefly explained, Metal Garurumon can do this not only look up and down differently in connection with the head and the neck joints, but even diagonally to the top left, diagonally to the bottom left, diagonally to the sides and diagonally to the top right, diagonally to the bottom right, etc. Even shorter, with the interaction of all these joints, Metal Garurumon can turn his head in all directions, just as it is similar with the Diodes Metal Garurumon. What is just madness for a transformable figure, and compared to the old one, a 100% improvement. As you have seen, he can also open the mouth to different degrees, since the lower jaw is movable, also similar to the Figuarts, only that the Figuarts can open it further, since the upper jaw of the transformable here is only limited and only slightly movable upwards. Very, very impressive if you compare it again with the old one, which head is actually not movable. He can open his mouth, but well, that's all. On the ears there is a molded on ball, and it is basically the same principle as it is with the ears of the Gabumon's form, but it is also more intended for the transformation here. But of course you can also angle the ears a bit and how you wish. And also for the posing, this is very great again. The same ball packs serve as joints for the front legs and for the rear legs, as well as those do for Gabumon's form, so that the legs can do a full 360 and can also be moved inwards and outwards in all directions through those balls. For the elbow joints, you have the die-cast ball of the hoses in connection with the cut open ball half socket. This means that the lower parts of the front legs are forwards and also a little bit backwards bendable, but do not overdo, I said something slightly. The knee joints have this double transformation hinge joint, and therefore the lower part of the hind legs are on these sections bendable forwards. The front paws each have a double hinge joint ball back joint combination, which with this combination of joints makes the front paws in all directions incredibly movable until parts getting in the way. This makes the front paws movable up and down and rotatable and even tiltable to the sides through the additional ball. They can also be rotated for the transformation, but it doesn't matter. But this all allows you to perfectly adapt the front paws to the ground or to the fighting pose, which is just absolutely great for transformable figure. The hind paws have only this double hinge joint, and because it lacks the additional ball pack, you can move them only at this double hinge joint up and down, and they are not rotatable. But the simpler joint system is still good for the hind paws. With the wings, our up and down movements are possible through the transformation hinge joint. The additional outer wing details also snap in nicely into the corresponding position, but can also be rotated backwards if you want, because of the transformation, but serve an accurate look only in this one particular snapped in position. The rear body part can be rotated 360 degrees at this black bendy joint, and this is even a ratchet joint, but this is also more intended for the transformation, but because it snaps into place through the ratchet, the rear part maintains the wished position for Metal Garurumon's Evo form perfectly, what is just top notch. There is another hinge joint for the tail blade, which means it can also be hinged up and down, and this is of course also more for the transformation, but this also allows you to adjust the perfect position. But this also applies here with the one certain position, because it only looks best in this certain positions. Yes, and for a four-legged beast, it is a very incredible pose ability. So he collects plenty of plus points again here. The conclusion about the kibble which are going on both evolution forms, you can rightly say that it is more than okay in both forms. Of course, Gabumon has a lot of Metal Garurumon ports on it, but these many kibble ports from Metal Garurumon on Gabumon's form are acceptable, and the additional better shaped kibble ports contribute to the accurate and complete look and the correct proportions for Metal Garurumon's form, which in the end has a very positive effect. And the rest of Gabumon's kibble was used for perfect effect to implement the different ports from the body of Metal Garurumon, as I did mention before, to be able to represent Metal Garurumon nicely. Therefore, unlike Wargreymon, I would say that the figure in Metal Garurumon's form has almost no kibble of Gabumon's form, similar how it was with the old figure. So you could compare this figure again without a doubt, and even more with a Transformers Masterpiece figure. Now a few final words about the box. As it was evident in advance and like it was announced, the boxes of the Choshinga Tamashii series or the Digivolving Spirit series are all blind boxes and all have an individual cover in the form of illustrations of the respective two characters by the Digimon designer Kenji Watanabe himself. This design has been and will be retained for further boxes too. In the case of Gabumon Metal Garurumon's box, you can of course see the cool illustrations by Watanabe of Gabumon and Metal Garurumon, where Metal Garurumon's wing design is adapted to the nature of the figure, and the illustration of Gabumon's form also reflects the shape of the figure, also with metal details from Metal Garurumon on his viewer arms. The box is again matte. For this figure it is mainly matte medium blue. Only the illustration of Gabumon and Metal Garurumon are shiny printed again. Otherwise the diecast evolution logo on the front again highlighted in that shiny silver there. Then you have the title of this figure series in white on a grey background. Digivolving Spirits, including a little larger in Japanese the Japanese title Choshinga Tamashii, and Digimon Adventure Gabumon Metal Garurumon 02 for the second release of this figure series. Below, very small Japanese writings, Bandai 2018, made in China. To the right, illustrated by Kenji Watanabe. And in the lower right corner, the Digimon Adventure logo, and below it the Bandai and Tamashii Nations logos. The lid is, as you can see, only matte medium blue and white glossy printed in the middle again in a similar form the title Digivolving Spirits Choshinga Tamashii Digimon Adventure 02 Gabumon Metal Garurumon. And on the left and right of it, a shiny bluish grey print of the silhouettes of the figures of Gabumon and Metal Garurumon. On the left side you can see the rest of Metal Garurumon's illustration from the cover, a product image of Gabumon's form, and above it the shiny white title again, Digivolving Spirits Choshinga Tamashii Digimon Adventure 02 Gabumon Metal Garurumon, which is also surrounded again by the 8 crest symbols of Adventure 01. On the right side we have a product image of Metal Garurumon's form, below again the same white shiny printed title, again here without the crest symbols. The matte back shows the great promotion image from the official promotion page with all sorts of labels and explanations in Japanese, which I cannot read. The diecast ports are advertised again, similar as on Agumon Wargreymon's box, as well as the clear ports. Again, the title on the top left, this time printed in shiny blue, Digimon Adventure 02 Gabumon Metal Garurumon. Right on the opposite again in matte blue Digivolving Spirits, Choshinka Tamashii, and below the printed diecast Evolution logo again. To the left of Metal Garurumon is an port from the promotion texts in Japanese and even in English, which briefly explains what Digivolving Spirits or Choshinka Tamashii's series is. A few English warnings at the left bottom, and on the right opposite again Shiny printed the image for the next release. Next lineup: 03, Digimon Adventure Children's War Game, Caramon, Diablomon, with the matching great promotion image of them. On the bottom the warnings and notes again in Japanese, the printed Toei seal, and on the right again in shiny blue the title. The really interesting thing is hidden on the lid flap again. I had the following translated again by my good female WhatsApp friend who actually knows Japanese very well, so thank you again. So there it is, very simple written again, just like on Agumon Wargreymon box. Gabumon Warp Shinka! Metal Garurumon! Or Gabumon Warp Evolution, Metal Garurumon, or of course Warp Digivolve. On the left side flap with Metal Garurumon and the crest symbol of friendship is again that written like on Agumon Wargreymon box. That you should cut out the crest symbol of friendship, because at that time Tamashii was still considering to do a kind of campaign in the future where proof of purchase of the figure is needed, and then this cut out crest symbol is then the required proof of purchase. On the right side flap this time Gabumon asks us to fill out a survey which also includes the Tamashii web logo and the web address. Again, the same like on Agumon Wargreymon box. From these facts just mentioned, I think that the figure as they have redesigned and implemented it is another solid masterpiece. Because of the nature of both forms, it was perhaps a bit easier to implement it in terms of Metal Garurumon's form compared to Wargreymon, since it is actually the same transformation system here as by the old Warp Digivolving figure, here with additional steps and added parts. But this shows how well the old figure was thought out and designed already back then, and that it was not possible to do it differently with the new one. In contrast to the old Warp Digivolving Agumon Wargreymon, with the old Gabumon Metal Garurumon figure, the color change could be implemented quite well already back then, and has now been perfected with the new one by using the same system and additional added parts. And the appearance of the new figure, especially in Metal Garurumon's form, got more than 100% improved. As I said, I personally think that the new Choshinka Tamashii Gabumon Metal Garurumon figure is even a bit better than Agumon Wargreymon, as I already said it in my information update videos about Gabumon Metal Garurumon. He should therefore not missing in any collection, because he is an absolutely cool enrichment and also improvement in terms of appearance to his old ego too. I would see this new series of figures as a fusion between of the most up-to-date transformable figures and the Tamashii Figuarts figures. In short, for me these are transformable, fully articulated Tamashii figures with a wonderful, sharp-edged and well-proportioned design, as I had already described in detail in Wargreymon's video review. Also here on Gabumon Metal Garurumon, the further feature remains impressive, that just like on the Figuarts figures, you see no screws or screw holes and stuff like that on him. And that should be now seen again as a comparison to the old Digivolving figures, which were intended to be for children. Tamashii themselves call the development between old and new a true digi-evolution in the parts because of the sharp-edged molds as on the Figuarts figures, and they are definitely right. Because this digi-evolution in the parts can also be recognized on Gabumon Metal Garurumon to 100%. Therefore, the price for the new Gabumon Metal Garurumon, which was too high for some people, is more than justified, I think, because it is a product of the collector's section. And all those who had previously expected a price range like for the old Digivolving figures, for the new ones were simply incredibly unrealistic, and those who still see this in this way are all beyond help in this regard, in my opinion. I wanted to mention that again because of the transformation system here is the same as by the old figure, so some see this even more extreme than by Agumon Wargreymon for this reason. And say, hey great, this is the old figure with a slightly improved look and therefore much too expensive. Honestly, those people who still think that way I just cannot understand, because it is not true. Again, you should think about the limited possibility of being able to implement these characters as transformable figures at all. I think I have presented another fair judgment about the second release of the Choshinga Tamashii series, which may help hopefully others to see the figure in its possible implementation again in a different light, and hope a little to have convinced critics. So I think I would have said everything important what was to be said about Choshinga Tamashii series, 02 Gabumon Metal Garurumon, respectively Digivolving Spirit series, 02 Gabumon Metal Garurumon. I think it was definitely enough again. Thank you so much to everyone who, for your attention, who have followed me until now, and I'm looking forward to present you in the next video the third release of this figure series, which of course I will dedicate to Choshinga Tamashii series 03 Caramon Diablomon, or Digivolving Spirit series 03 Caramon Diablomon. If you liked the video, so hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Take care, and until the next review video, your Mega 88 1000.
帰りたい気持ちのままで、泣いたって笑ったって変わらないことがある。だけど信じた手と手をつないで歩いてく。何だってできるようになれるよ時の中で。だから信じた手と手をつないで歩いてく。Oh, save, try to be free. Oh, save, try to be free. たり諦めることは誰も一瞬あればできるから歩き続けよう君にしかできないことがある青い星に光がなくせるようにつかめ描いた夢を守れ大事な友をたくましい自分になれるさ知らないパワーが宿るハートに火がついたらどんな願いも嘘じゃないきっと叶うから Show me your brave heart晴れの日ばかりじゃないからたまに冷たい雨も降るけれど傘広げよう生き方に地図なんかないけどだから自由どこへだって行ける君も走れ風より速く目指せ空より遠く新しい自分に会えるさ知らない勇気が巡るハートに気がついたら胸の中の土砂降りもきっと止むから Show me your brave heartつかめ眩しい明日を守れ愛する人たくましい自分になれるさ壊せ弱気な君を崩せぶつかる壁を熱いこと武器になるから Believe in your heart くな